Hello again. We're just starting section 3. I'm glad you can make it along. The previous two sections have revolved around theory and setup, but now we'll be looking at writing some less code. Variables form a key part of less. In this section, we are going to take a look at what variables are and how they work. We'll have a look at some advanced usage features, and we'll begin putting variables into practice. We'll also talk about why we should use them. So let's move on with the first video of this section. What is a variable and how does it work? In this video, we'll be looking at variables, what they are, what they can store, and how they work. So let's load up our example file. In a directory, you'll see an index.html page. Drag this into your browser and load it up. This will only work if you're running a local development server, something like XAMPP, MAMP, or WAMP, depending on which operating system you are using. Back to the example now. You can see a fairly basic and simple looking page set out like a blog. There's a header image, a title, and a preview piece of content. Finally, some tags. This is all written in HTML and CSS at the moment, but we'll now look at converting all of this into less. We'll be using this page as an example for the rest of this series. So now we'll take a look at our less file. Back inside our example code, go to assets/less/style.less. You can see that even though it's named style.less, it is in fact just pure CSS. We haven't added any less code yet. All we've done is taken the pre-written style.css file and renamed it style.less. Less will still compile this and convert it to CSS for you, even though there's nothing to convert. That doesn't matter though, as you can still take advantage of the minifying options as we spoke about in the last section. If you take a brief look through the code, you'll see there are a fair amount of repeat values. I've noticed the hex code E24234 is repeated often. This is the red that's used throughout the example page. It'd be a pain if I wanted to change this to blue. Sure, I could run a find and replace on the code to change that hex to another, but that won't change any other colours which rely on the red, darker shades or opposites. This is where variables come in. A variable is a store for a value. You can assign many different types of value to a variable, but a variable can only hold one value. Once you've assigned a value to a variable, you can recall that value by calling the variable. Let's take a look at an example. We'll use the red colour highlighted earlier. In less, variables follow the form of a standard CSS selector. A variable is denoted by the @ symbol. This is then followed by the variable name. The variable name is followed by a colon, and this is where you then enter the value you want to assign to the variable, followed by a semicolon. You've written standard CSS selectors before, so this should feel familiar. Variables can also hold numbers, words, strings of words, and even other variables. There are certain constraints and rules to stick to though. You can't begin a variable name with a number, nor with punctuation. Also can't begin a variable name with an underscore or a hyphen. So basically anything between A and Z. So now that we know what variables are and what they can do, let's go through our style.less file and add a variable for the main red colour. I always declare variables at the top of the document as it's an easy place to locate them. However, if I'm working on a large project, I'll create a separate variable document called _vars.less and then import this. We'll discuss importing and naming conventions later on. You can put your variables wherever you want in your document, but it's best to keep them in one place. So let's begin by entering a new header comment, // variables. So beneath our new // variables comment at the top, let's create our first variable. We'll call it @main-color, as it is the main color on our document. I could call it @red, but if we changed our mind later and wanted the main color to be blue, having a variable named @red which held a blue value wouldn't make much sense. So to recap, @ symbol, main-color, : and now our hex code. hash E24234 followed by a semicolon. Awesome! Well done, you've written your first piece of less code. Now to replace the hex codes in our less file with our variable. Now, as we've swapped the color for the variable color and it's the same, our example page wouldn't have changed. So let's test the variable. Go back to style.less and change the @main-color value for something else. I'll swap mine for a hex code, hash 1abc9c, but you can change yours to whatever you want. So you can see now that changing the one variable has an effect on our title color, our link color, the tag colors at the bottom, along with the dividing line. All that by changing one variable. Good work! In this video, we have learnt about variables and seen them in action. We've also written our first less code.